What's up, everyone? My name is Guillaume. This is Thommann's Guitars and Basses, and I have the absolute pleasure to be with Matteo Mancuso today. Thank you so much for being here, man.
Thank you, man.
And welcome to our TED Talk masterclass / of every guitar technique you can possibly play in an introduction. That was incredible, man. I have many things that I want to ask you today. I think we'll do, well, first off, thank you guys for your patience. This is an Italian and a Frenchman speaking about modes and scales in English, so that's going to be fun.
It will be hard for sure.
But yeah, I want to talk a little bit about your gear, how you set things up, technique, obviously, maybe a second part, and finally, everything that you've got going on right now, what's going to happen in the near future, where can those beautiful people catch you, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
First off, yeah, I'd say, let's start with the gear. What do you use? Why do you use it? How do you use it?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So
it would be a long answer.
Yeah. No, we got time, don't worry.
Yeah, first of all, I'm a big fan of digital amp modeling, so I always gravitated towards this kind of things, you know, Helix. And my first Helix was DLT.
Yeah.
Is the economic version of this Helix floor, but it has basically the same possibilities. So what I was trying to have is like a all-in-one pedal board with amp modeling and effects as well. So what I use now is mostly my Helix straight to the PA.
Okay.
I go stereo most of the time, like now. And I mainly use 4 sounds. I use the snapshots. First of all, the snapshots lets you pass through the sounds in a very peaceful way. Without having to,
The peace of mind component is way up there.
Yeah, snapshots are really one of the best inventions, one of the best features of this pedal board. And I mainly use my clean sound. This one is more clean jazzy sound rather than. So this is the sound I use most of the time, and then I have.
Did you model that first sound after something specific? Was it just tailored to like something that you heard in your head or? Another artist?
I have some like specific sounds in my head, maybe something that I heard on some albums. Yeah. Like for example, one of my favorite players is for sure Eric Johnson. So it's a big influence of how I deal in my sounds, you know. So this clean sound is actually more inspired by the jazz tradition, let's say. So like Pat Martino, for example, or Pat Metheny also, they have this kind of big dark sound. I'm a big fan of this kind of sound.
I really love that,
yeah. Right now I use him. I think it's a twin reverb or a Princeton reverb, but it's a Fender for sure. And of course the simulation. And I just add at the start of the chain a little compressor. It's called the Lux Camp. So I have a slightly little compression of this kind of sound. And also on the guitar, I always roll the volume knob a little bit.
That's like I was going to ask.
9 or 8.
Yeah.
So you don't have that kind of high end on your clean sound.
Tone is on 10?
Usually, yes. Because this sounds here, it's particularly dark. So if you also roll the tone, it will be too muddy, you know. So I always prefer to have my tone at 10 and then maybe just a little bit less volume.
Yeah, it does a whole lot for that, for sure.
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
And then, of course, I have the same sound, but with the chorus added. So. So, and this kind of sound, I use it mostly with the bridge pickup. So I have like a kind of a chord layer, especially when maybe the bass player is doing a solo and I can add some chord layers to it, you know.
Because you mostly play in like trio duos, like sort of situations. So
I mostly play on a trio setting. So I'm the only one that can make chords.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have to do all the dirty work.
Well, you do it beautifully, but there's also like the question of frequency and like the amount of space that you have, because you only 3 people and you 2 like melodic instruments. Nothing against drummers. I like you too, but you still have like quite a lot of space to use those choruses and those dark sounds of that, because you basically half of the spectrum. The bass is going to cover the lows, but you have so much room to play with as well. That's really cool.
Yeah. That's why I always try to have different sounds, depends on the setting. And like, for example, if I'm playing with the trio, I like to have very big sounds, so I can fill up the spaces, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
When I am on another setting, like I'm playing with a pianist or there are more instruments, I tend to have like a thinner sound, but the thinner sound tends to be better on the mix. You know?
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah, and I always take, for example, the Steve Lukather sound. If you isolate the tracks from the Toto songs, for example, you realize that the sound, especially the lead sound that Steve has, is not really big, you know? It's a thin sound, but it sits perfectly on the mix, you know?
Exactly. And like then you're like, what frequency do I have? And just like peak on that one. Like,
because beautiful. The guitar will sound better on the mix, and that's why on the trio, on the other hand, you have to make up for that. And
but those are really nice, big, dark, full sounds. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, I see crunch.
Yeah, this is my crunch channel, and it's not really an aggressive sound, like I say. So. So the sound I use here is really. Sometimes I use it also with a digital delay.
Yeah.
So you kind of have this kind of distortion where it really, especially when you are playing chords, if you have too much distortion, it will not sound good, you know? So I always try to make a distortion for the chords and a distortion for the lead notes.
Yeah, absolutely. But that sounds like, it's got the organic, like almost pushed clean. Like if you were into an amplifier, they're just like maxing out the preamp. Like, no, that's.
And I always use the same. I think it's always the same Fender amp.
Yeah.
But with a drive pedal before.
It was Deluxe. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's the Deluxe with this kind of distortion pedal. It's called the Hedgehog D9. Of course, they can't use the real names.
No.
So,
but, okay.
And then I have my lead sound, and it's really inspired by one of my favorite players, and it's for sure Eric Johnson and Alan Allsworth as well.
Yeah.
It's kind of a mix of both sounds. So really dark sounds without getting too aggressive, but at the same time, it's of course more distorted than the crunch.
Yeah.
So. So you have this kind of big, dark sound, but with a little bit of sparkle. So you have the aggressiveness.
What's your process when it comes to that? Because every time I make patches for Helix, so like we've used the HX Storm a whole lot as well. Every time I just sort of start Googling, okay, what did that guitar player use? Like Eric Johnson. Okay, so you got the fuzz, you got the tube screamer, you got that kind of amp boosted that way. And then I really try and mimic that.
The exact same.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how do you go about it? Is it similar, or do you just go with your ears and?
I kind of go with my ears first, but I'm a guitar nerd too, so I search for who uses this stuff, and so you're not alone.
You're most welcome on this channel and with this audience. That's epic. Okay.
Yeah, of course I'm aware that everyone has his own personal touch. So even if you have the exact same rig as Eric Johnson, you will never sound like him, because the tone, the touch, and I don't play with the pick, and that's a big part of my sound. So I have a very different attack, from compared to pick players, of course. What I try to do is, first of all, listen to the recordings and be aware that the sound on the recording is another thing. The sound live needs to be treated on a different way, because, of course, on the recording you have a lot of different, aspects, and
in the mixing and mastering.
In the mixing
process,
and mastering, and most of the time the guitar gets modified a lot.
Yeah.
So the starting point is really sometimes really far from the final result.
Absolutely.
So what I'm trying to do here is trying to use like my 4 main sounds and try to get the most of it. I don't like to use like 4 different amps or just because you can. That doesn't mean that you have to do it, because this kind of pedal boards are limited. I think it's better to know your gear rather than have tons of stuff and don't know everything with them. It's better to have like 5 pedals and know everything about them, rather than have 15 different pedals and don't really know how to use it,
Words of wisdom right there. That's absolutely. I'm 100% with you on that.
And another thing, I always like to work wherever I have an amp or on the cabinet section. You have this low cut and high cut, and I think these are the most important values.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because they really transform your sound. They really transform your sound on everything.
Absolutely.
So right now I'm using IRs, but it's the same with the stock cabinets as well.
Yeah.
And of course the choice of the mic. So you have also a mic placement here, and it's gonna transform your playing. If you have like a Shure SM57 or a Ribbon, it is completely different. So I suggest to experiment a lot with like, okay, I like this cabinet, but I would like a darker sound or a thinner sound. Go to the low cut and high cut. They are the most important values for me. Yeah.
Now, let's talk about that right hand of yours. You display so many different techniques, some of which the human mind can comprehend, all the tapping and the multi-finger tapping, all that it's super interesting to see you sort of powder that in your playing. But there's something that baffles me. You go from a very classical fingerstyle position, and you'll go for more of a like sideways position with your wrist, and it doesn't seem to be a pattern. You'll go play like this and like this on ascending or descending lines, and I couldn't figure out why is he choosing that technique there, why that one here. Like, is there like a conscious thing behind it of how you're going to pick? Is it just for sound? Is it for comfort? Specific line?
Basically, sometimes I'm not even aware because it's part of my muscular memory. So sometimes it's just the muscular memory kicks in and I play this kind of line. But I think the rule should be that I mainly use 2 positions. The bass-like technique and this one. And I think this is more fitting for like a 3-note per string scales, or like phrases that they don't need a big jump, so really close things to one another. So this kind of lines, I always tend to play with this kind of right-hand technique. So when I switch to chords or double stops, I switch to this kind of technique because I can hit the multiple strings in a very easy way. So the classical like double stops blues stuff, I always do them with the the proper classical technique, let's say. So if I have like string skipping or this kind of stuff, like this kind of lines, I tend to play them with this technique because you have 4 fingers available. If I play like that, I don't have my thumb available because I have to hold it like that. And of course, when you play like that, you have more volume. So for example, if you want to play like more aggressive things, like for example, Paul Gilbert runs. So this gives you more attack, and it's more similar to the sound of the pick. So this is more similar to the attack you have with the pick. So a popular line by Paul Gilbert, for example, is so I tend to play this kind of lines with my appoggiato technique. In Italian, it's called like that. And then you have the pizzicato technique, that is this kind of technique.
Position.
And I tend to play lines like 1 note per string, for example, with this technique. So you have lines like... So yeah, it's really a mix between those two, and depending of the line I want to play, I change my right hand technique. And of course, for the tapping, because I have nails, and if you have long nails, they get in the way while you do the tapping. So for this kind of stuff, it's because I take my nails, I keep my nails very short because of that. So otherwise, it will be getting in the way, you know.
Does it feel like a compromise? So would you like to have them longer if you weren't doing the tapping, for example?
No, actually, I prefer them shorter on everything, because longer nails, I think they get in the way sometimes.
I understand.
So I always try to keep them short. This is the length.
Just tag the slow-mo guys in the comments, because I'd like to have Matteo back in the studio, but with like a 2,000 frame per second camera, and we can just focus that on his right hand to try and understand what's happening. I'd love to do that. Okay, that's... how do you find that, how much of an effort was that to reconcile those, I'd say mostly acoustic classical techniques with the electric guitar sound? Did you have to like be conscious about the like clicky noise, or was it like a weird sort of transition from acoustic to electric, or was it always the two at the same time?
Yeah, I think the funny thing is that I started with the electric, so it was kind of the opposite. When I got to play classical, I was like, oh, the strings are too big, and the neck is too big, and everything was too big. And from the electric guitar perspective, I think one of the first problems is that I started without nails. And the sound was just too dark, you know? I wasn't getting the attack I wanted. And that's why I used nails after, like, after I studied a little bit of classical guitar, I started to realize, okay, you also need nails for the electric guitar. Otherwise, you can't really hear the attack. And another one of the problem was the string noise sometimes, because especially when I play like that with this kind of bass technique, you can't do the palm muting.
I was going to ask, how do you mute anything?
So one of the first, I digressed a little bit.
I know, but the way you jump from one, because I'm trying to see how you mute the upper strings and the way your thumb just kind of follows up. Like I have I have a similar, much slower technique for slide guitar.
Okay.
Because I play a lot of slide, and that's also noisy in its own respect. And so I move my thumb to basically the upper string of where I'm playing to try and keep it as quiet as possible. And I saw something kind of similar there.
Yeah, it's kind of similar, especially when I play like that.
Yeah. The thumb just travels with it, yeah.
Yeah, the thumb follows the line, you know? So you see that the thumb is slowly following. And when I play like that, it's more difficult because I don't have my palm. Mm-hmm. So what I try to do is, of course, the left hand position really helps you, especially when you're playing like you step on a note. Yeah. And what I try to do most of the time is to have my index finger on the string. Mm-hmm. So I have kind of muted the strings with my left hand. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. So that's why sometimes I use a sponge on on the part of the neck. So yeah. So if I switch to so I control the strings with my right hand, and whenever I switch to this technique, I try to, adjust my left hand a little bit. Yeah.
That's. I forgot what we're here to talk about. This is really cool. I do want to mention that we're going to have at least one more video with Matteo playing through one of his new songs or upcoming songs.
It's one song from the album.
The album. As well as a video by our friends at Bonedo, who are going to dive deeper into Matteo's history as a guitar player and how he got to that. Which is, okay, so... where are you taking that playing now? I see like you're going to be, you're here on your way to Guitar Summit. Are you working on more conventions, touring, new music? What have you got going on?
Yeah, I'm actually working on some new music.
Okay.
So my first album got out in July. Mm-hmm. I'm already thinking about the musical direction I want to take for the second album, you know. And one of my, let's say, issues, musically speaking, is that I'm interested in so much different styles of music.
You can hear that, yeah.
That it's really hard to prepare an album and say, okay, this will be a rock and roll album, or this will be a jazz album. And I can't really do that, because I want that the music I like has a lot of different styles and influences. Yeah. So I want that my music is also like that. So I think the second album will be spaced up with some other influences as well, while maintaining, myself, my style, my kind of style. And
you keep your album coherent. Like, it's many different styles, but it's you playing all of those things. So there's still your identity in there.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about, the identity that the second album needs to have. And then, of course, I'm always studying guitar. I'm always try to get better as a player and as a musician and as a human as well,
That's the objective, yeah. All striving to be our best. It's super interesting, though. I've done a few interviews in my days, and I think you're one of the first person who actually mentions the practice side of it, like spending your time. Obviously, you get busy, you get touring, you get doing clinics and everything, but how much of your time is dedicated to just sit down and either learn a new piece or practice a particular technique or something like this?
It's a lot of time. I mean, I try to play guitar every day, first of all. Because I like to be, it doesn't need to be an obligation, Yeah. I don't really like the word practice, because for me it's it's a personal thing. It's something that I do because it refresh my brain in a way. So for me, I see it always like a funny thing to play guitar, and at the same time I practice, of course. But I never felt that I have to practice. I always practice because I want to practice, and that's the key in order to do let's say a good practice routine. You have to love the process. So I try to play every day. I try to listen as much music as I can, especially music where the guitar is not really the protagonist, because we guitar players, we have the tendency to listen too many guitar players, you know?
Yep.
And the thing is, there's so much music out there where the guitar is not the protagonist, but somehow it's also incredibly interesting and good.
I absolutely love that take. I'm so into like soundtracks, like either movie or like video game soundtracks for the most part. Like a lot of my musical ideas and licks that I play over and over and over again on this channel come from like Skyrim or the Witcher soundtrack.
Wow, Skyrim is one of my favorite games.
It's absolutely incredible, and those things I can listen to on repeat. There's not a single guitar. It's just like there's a bit of lute, there might be a bit of classical here and there, but like very sparse. And like this, so inspiring to try and take those ideas and then translate them.
Because people think that if you listen guitar, you will learn more about this. But the thing is that even if you listen other players, saxophone players, piano players, or even cinematic soundtracks, this will transfer to your guitar playing because you're absorbing musical ideas, and that's the point. You have to absorb musical ideas. You don't have to only absorb guitar licks,
That's again, more wise words. I'm gonna let you play us out. I'm really looking forward to the performance. You guys definitely go check it out. We'll link all the other videos, whether that one, the one from Bonedo, as well as everything. Matteo, social media, websites, touring schedule, clinic schedule, everything. Check out the description down below. We'll also be linking all the gear that Matteo has been using in this video and the others, or similar instruments in beautiful different colors and pickup configurations. So go check it out. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been an absolute pleasure and treat to pick your brain. And please do take us out as melodically as you know how. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you in the next one.